Hey everyone. Yesterday I talked about starting work on the scheduling portion of my expert project, and I made a little bit of progress, and I wanted to share what it looks like and some of the thoughts behind it. So, just to kind of show you what it looks like right now, when you're on the actually to set the stage, there's two parts. One is when you're setting up your own page to get people to find you and set up time with you, you want to set up your own availability. And then second is when they see your site, they want to pick the availability. So this is the first part, which is setting up your availability. And I'm restricting it now to either 30 minutes or an hour. And then you select your availability throughout the week so that they can set up recurring sessions with you. So I've sort of used this model that's used in a lot of places. If you've used Calendly before, it's pretty similar, but you can pick the days you're available and then the times in which you're available. And the last thing is you can also just restrict last minute booking so that users can't book until, within a certain amount of time, so there's no last minute bookings. So let's talk about some of the complexity here. To start off, let's just, these are simple checkboxes, the days of the week, and these drop downs. So one piece that's pretty annoying is just dealing with time on the internet. So I wanted to make sure I do time zone math correctly and basically time math correctly. So, one obvious thing you'll notice is I haven't really translated this to kind of human readable times. And I'm trying my best to use just pure JavaScript and not use any libraries. So let's see how far I get. And just to kind of set the stage, a little bit of context, like my first web app I made maybe 3 years ago in 2016, I naively thought I could just do all the time zone math myself, but slowly learned that you basically have to use a library or just some framework that kind of solves this all for you. So I'm pretty sure back then I ended up using Moment.js, which is probably the most popular JavaScript time library. This time, partly because apparently you're not supposed to use Moment anymore because it's a very heavyweight JavaScript library, I tried using just the pure JavaScript date object and the pure internationalization library that's that's supported by every browser. So I'll highlight two things. One is just how I generated this select option. So how I got basically time 0, which is midnight, all the way to 11:45. I'll talk about that. And then 2 is you'll notice here that I get the user's time zone because you want it to be reflected in their time zone. So I'll just quickly go through that. So I'll start with this return function, which is what's actually being represented. I have this list of increments, and then I map them to create a array of increments. And you'll notice, you can probably guess it is a pure date object, and I just get the hours and minutes. And then you'll immediately notice that get hours and get minutes kind of results in these single digit numbers when really you would one is it's a 24-hour clock, and 2 is it doesn't pad the 0, which is a little unfortunate. So I'm sure a lot of time libraries kind of do that for you. But again, I'm just going to see if I can just create simple helper functions for myself, or if it gets too annoying, I may just resort to using those libraries. So, okay, so that's great. But how do I actually make this list of dates? So what I did was, and I'd love to hear if there's a better way to do this because it's a little janky. So I created the start time, which took yesterday's date, I think. And because I did this yesterday, and I started at time 0, which is midnight, and then I multiplied it by 24 hours, 60 minutes, and I divided by session length, which is defaulting to 30, but if you see in the UI, you can set it to 60, which would make different amounts of chunks. So either 24 chunks or 48 chunks based on this simple math. So I initialize the array with just start time, and I apologize if you guys can hear construction. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of construction in my neighborhood right now. So I initialize the array with just the start time, and I use just a literal for loop to just increment by the session length, and then I push it to the array. So it creates a giant array either of length 12 or of length 24 or 48, and that's dependent on the session length passed in. And this is an array of data objects, so we clearly don't want to pass an object into our render function. So I actually use the get hours, get minutes to get the strings. But as you can tell, it's not quite perfect. So I'll try dealing with that. This is only honestly half the battle, because once I get this, I want to encode it in the database in a reasonable way. And chances are I want to encode it in UTC such that any viewer, I can translate it into their time zone. So let's talk about time zones for a second. You'll notice that I'm grabbing the user's time zone. So how does that actually work, and why is that valuable? So I'll start with why that's valuable. You always want to do things in the user's time zone and do the translation yourself. So even though I want to store things in UTC, and if people aren't familiar with UTC is, it's just actually I don't even know what I think it's universal time. Yeah, universal time, where I'm pretty sure it uses Greenwich time. So it sets it basically is the time zone right down the middle here, and it's useful in programming only because it just pegs something as sort of a standard that people work around. So I'll probably be doing the same thing. And so let's talk about how I grab that, which I should find. I do this where I just kind of search things by string, and there it is. So INTL, I think, is just available in all browsers, but let's actually see. I always just Google everything I need to know. So what actually is it? It's a namespace of the internationalization API, which apparently is supported by most browsers. So I like that, so I don't have to import any packages. So you call datetime format, well, you do a bunch of stuff, but eventually you get time zone. And then that grabs this. So just to kind of verify, this time zone object, or this field in this object, is basically this part here. So it tells you exactly which time zone the user is. And then I do another piece here, which is just using the date object, you can grab the offset, which is a number of minutes offset from UTC. So that's like the -5, -6, +10, whatever it needs to be for the user. So you just know, like, oh, this is the +5. Actually, this should be minus, shouldn't it? I'll have to look into that. But yeah, I just wanted to let the user know that's the case. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Hopefully I can make a lot of progress today, and I'll share it with you tomorrow. Talk to you guys soon. Let me know if you have any questions or want to see something else.